Local mail carriers rally for a better contract and push back against recent comments by President Trump.
We deserve a living wage and to be able to be made whole.
Plus, a town hall in Idaho disrupted by violence.
They threw her on the ground and got on top of her.
While the victim says she was just trying to ask a question. And former federal workers speak out.
It was a stab to the heart because I was like, this is the dream place I want to be working.
As the Trump administration continues eyeing cuts to the federal government. It's been a wet day across the Rose City. Since yesterday afternoon, more than 2 inches of rain has fallen over downtown Portland. Let's take a quick look at our Newport Skycam, where you could see heavy rain and the camera shaking from the wind earlier this afternoon. Calming down a little bit now. Thanks for joining us here at 5. I'm John Adams. Let's get right to meteorologist Joe Ranieri for the latest on this weather impact alert. Joe?
Yeah, that weather impact alert is going to be encompassing basically a good portion of the state, specifically west side of the state. That red color is a high wind warning that will be in effect along the Oregon coast. Really, by tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow night is when the winds really start to pick up, gusts anywhere from 50 to 60 miles an hour. The green color is a flood watch that's also in effect along the Oregon coast and basically up and down the I-5 corridor and throughout the metro area. Also, that purple color, I kind of went kind of fast, is an avalanche warning throughout parts of the southern Washington Cascades. We're looking at a temperature right now of 51 degrees along the central Oregon coast. Wind gusts only about 25 miles an hour. I say only because by tomorrow night, those gusts could be anywhere from 50 to 60 miles an hour. That's why that warning is in place, because of the high wind up and down the Oregon coast. But downtown Portland right now, look at that. Temperature of 60 degrees. I'll have to double check this. This could be the warmest day so far this year, and it's only going to get a little bit warmer by the later part of this week. I'll talk more about that in detail, but again, this weather impact alert is going to be because of the high wind and the rain that arrives. Basically, we're dry for the rest of the afternoon and evening hours, but after midnight, another round of rain picks up. But notice the rainfall amounts. I told you we'd see close to an inch of rain by the end of the day. A lot of locations are just spilling over an inch, especially along the Oregon coast, where Tillamook, you're looking at 1 1/3 of an inch, or excuse me, 1.31 inches of rain is the easiest way to say that one. So the weather headlines look like this: a stormy start to your work week, heavy rain and strong winds, coastal gusts anywhere from 50 to 60 miles an hour. Here in the valley, it's going to be closer to 40 to 50. There could be some minor stream flooding as well as some street flooding over the next several hours starting tomorrow and into the afternoon. Along with the high wind and the heavy rain, there's a chance to see some thunderstorms developing as well. I'll break that all down for you coming up. I know a lot to take in for this Sunday night, but we do have a lot to talk about with your over the next 48 hours or so. We'll talk more about that in about 10 minutes, John.
All right, Joe, thank you so much. We'll see you then. We have a traffic alert to get to tonight. ODOT has shut down a section of the Columbia River Highway because of a landslide. The closure is between mileposts 64 and 66, just west of Rowena. ODOT says there is rockfall and debris on the road, and to expect a lengthy closure if you're headed that way. USPS workers rallied Sunday afternoon for what they call a fair contract and spoke out against President Trump's recent comments about the Postal Service and its future. Our Celine Stevens was at the rally and joins us now from the newsroom with more. Celine.
John, these workers say that they are underpaid, overworked, and are now worried about the future of the Postal Service after President Trump's latest words regarding potentially merging the Postal Service with the Commerce Department. Now, I'm told that across the nation, USPS workers are starting to rally to make their demands heard.
I am almost 51 years old. I never thought at this age I'd have to work 2 jobs.
Fight like hell! Fight like hell!
No matter the rain, snow, or sun, United States Postal Service mail carriers deliver your mail. But Sunday, in the pouring rain, mail carriers, a part of the National Association of Letter Carriers, came out to rally.
So our contract expired in May of 2023. We've been negotiating that contract since then, actually since before then. And the best offer that the Postal Service was willing to put on the table was a 1.3% wage increase.
Workers voted that down, demanding a more livable wage.
It's hard to just survive, and we're out here every day in this kind of weather, working, and we deserve a living wage and to be able to be made whole.
According to workers, some positions like city carrier assistants make less than $20 an hour, while sometimes working up to 12 hours a day.
I made $19.33 an hour, so that it barely covered my bills.
Now, workers like Tina Fisher have made their way up to higher positions, but it's still hard.
I'm only making $22.13 an hour as a career letter carrier, coming up on 3 years. And my second job, believe it or not, I actually make more hourly there than I do at the post office.
Not only were workers rallying for a better contract, but also against the latest words from the Trump administration following the swearing in of the new Department of Commerce secretary.
We're leaving the Postal Service, but we're losing so much money with the Postal Service, and we don't want to lose that kind of money. So the secretary and some others that have talent, that kind of talent, we'll be looking at.
Why is it that the post office is expected to turn a profit every year, but no other government agency is expected to turn a profit?
Trump also mentioned potentially merging USPS with the Commerce Department, bringing up concerns of privatization.
That would get us closer to privatizing, and it may not be an immediate thing, but it would be kind of a slow burn.
We make those shipping rates cheaper for everybody, and with the privatization of the service, those rates are going to increase dramatically.
I reached out to USPS for comment, but have not yet received a response. Workers said if privatization were to eventually happen, Americans in rural areas or those who are lower income would specifically be impacted. John?
All right, our Celine Stevens tonight. Thank you, Celine. Well, let's take a look now at tonight's headlines. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's willing to give up his position for peace in Ukraine. The president made the remarks during a press conference in Kyiv today, adding that he would also be willing to resign from his post in exchange for NATO membership. Zelensky's offer is a major concession amid an ongoing public dispute with President Donald Trump, which escalated last week when Trump suggested that the Ukrainian president was responsible for starting the war. Prayers continue for Pope Francis as he battles double pneumonia. According to the Vatican, the Pope remains in critical condition. The Vatican also shared that the 88-year-old Pope has presented no further respiratory crisis since last night, but is showing signs of early kidney failure. He had a peaceful night following a blood transfusion and oxygen therapy. And in the U.S., a father and son were rescued last week after being stranded on a mountainside in southern Utah. According to a news release from the State Department of Public Safety, the father and his 12-year-old son were hiking on a steep cliffside in Snow Canyon State Park when they became stuck in freezing temperatures without a working phone. Fortunately, a hiker who became stranded in the same area weeks earlier had left behind a backpack filled with food, water, and emergency blankets. They were able to use the items as they waited for rescue. A woman in North Idaho was dragged out of a town hall yesterday after speaking out against the policies being discussed there. The incident happened during the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee Legislative Town Hall. Teresa Borenpol says she tried to ask elected officials a question, which led to unknown security officers dragging her out of her seat and out of the meeting. She was treated for bruises at the ER.
She was literally just sitting in her seat when they came up and just like ripped her out of her seat and started they threw her on the ground and got on top of her. And so there was a lot of women directly around her saying, "Who are you? Why are you doing this? Get your hands off of her." And then there were other people in the audience that were cheering and clapping. And honestly, it was sad.
Our Idaho news partners reached out to the Kootenai County Republican Central Committee, who hosted that town hall, as well as the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. They have not yet responded. In Western Washington, laid-off workers are joining forces with Senator Patty Murray to speak out against cuts. Our Jim Nelson takes a closer look at some of the people impacted.
A government employee isn't a line item.
Senator Patty Murray pushing back on the federal layoffs sweeping across the country.
These are real jobs with real functions, with real people.
Murray was joined by laid-off federal workers in a virtual event this week.
And now I feel like I've been cast aside like some sort of parasite class.
Greg Bafundo worked at the Okanagan-Wenatchee National Forest as a lead wilderness ranger.
I've saved lives dangling off of cliffs in the North Cascades. I saved the life of a cardiac patient. I stood in the way as 100-foot flames burned toward the town of Natchez.
My termination isn't just a personal tragedy. It's a stark reminder that our federal government is dismantling essential support systems for veterans and vulnerable communities.
Rafael Garcia is a disabled Army veteran who worked for the VA.
It was a stab to the heart because, I was like, this is the dream place I want to be working.
Both men say they were recently let go by email, as Murray continues to call out the so-called Department of Government Efficiency led by Elon Musk. President Trump praised those efforts again on Saturday.
We're removing all of the unnecessary, incompetent, and corrupt bureaucrats from the federal workforce. That's what we're doing.
It is ham-handed, it is dangerous, and it is mean.
Jim Nelson, King 5 News.